Well, thank you for joining us for this. It's actually our last teaching, learning, and technology roundtable of this academic year anyway. So we started these in September. It's a joint project between IFEX, I'm Naomi Mardak-Uman, and my colleagues in IDS, who if they wave, you'll be able to see them in this room here, David Benz and Jessica DeMonico. Is that right? Yes, yeah. So we're excited to have you here today for an update from the Academic Council's subgroup for open educational resources as a follow-up and more information from our last session, which was a couple weeks ago when we had Amy Hofer come in from Oregon Educational Resources, and she provided just a really good overview for us and lots of good information. And so today we are excited to hear about the work that's being done here, what's been done and what we can expect and how we can get involved. So thank you to Cindy, who's leading that group, and the other folks from the Academic Council who are here with us today. And I will just hand it off to you all. Is that good, Cindy?
Yeah, I would say Leanne and I, Leanne Opitz, faculty in geography, are co-chairing this little merry band. And so we've been meeting with Chris Voorhees and Scott Mahoney, and I think from time to time Karina Clark is in our gang. It seems to me like Al Cox is in and out with us. Is that right? And I'm not sure, we may have Nikki from time to time, but she's usually teaching from nursing or one of the health, careers. So we have a little group that's been meeting in an ongoing fashion this last year. And really, I would say if we could hop, skip, and jump, but probably 10 years ago, there was a textbook task force at the college, and we attempted to, get the word out about reducing costs for students, especially on textbooks. And so we came up at the time with the lots of customizations, arrangements we could make with publishers to reduce costs by reducing, the selection of what was packaged, in a standard textbook, reducing that and putting it together in a package that we used here with some success for maybe 4 or 5 years, maybe a little longer in some cases, because, the textbooks themselves change. And that that began to change. I don't know exactly when, but we talked about open educational resources again, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, because we were looking at the textbook adoption procedures memorandum. And, what did we want when we're going about selecting texts? And, there's also the idea of who selects the text. Is it a department decision? Is it an individual decision? So we talked at that time too about the idea that whenever possible, we would like to have our materials be quite affordable, and that they would be accessible to students with disabilities, or for all learners, as we like to say. So here we are, kind of fast forward, and I would just say back then, the 5 years ago, there was a feeling that we didn't necessarily want to push OER too hard because we have an arrangement with a bookstore. That's about the nicest way I can put it. And it's a, it's a kind of beneficial arrangement that we have with them. And we didn't really want to tinker with that too much. But again, I think the faculty, have said for a while, let's try this again. And with Path Forward, and with the idea of equity and inclusion in mind, and certainly our students don't have a lot of money, we took another run at the topic and then put the subcommittee together. So that's kind of the background on it. And I'm missing an awful lot of discussions and, things that have been done with it. But that'd be kind of a backdrop to what our group, knows about the past as far as the topic goes. And then we've gotten together and put together some objectives for our group, and I would say some categories of information that we're attempting to assemble to help faculty either choose open educational resources or in some cases make educational resources. So those are kind of a couple of branches of our very large topic. We ran a survey and got some pretty good information from faculty, albeit some of it general. And we've been meeting monthly to to kind of go through different aspects of the topic and work with the details of it. So Scott Mahoney is one of our librarians. Kind of early on, we decided that we needed to have our librarians involved with this effort because they would be the obvious experts to help us locate materials and perhaps keep lists of resources and information for faculty and staff. And we also brought in Chris Voorhees as an accessibility expert to be on our group. And, really the rest of us are faculty. So maybe we want to go around and I'll quit talking about everything and we can each chime in. Leanne, why don't you take the lead at this time and just give us a little bit more ride down the road here.
Yeah, thanks, Cindy. So as Cindy had said, there's a history with looking at textbook selection and considering OER as a classroom resource. And so Academic Council last year formed a subcommittee to, take a more serious look at this, to make recommendations for faculty who might be, thinking about adopting OER resources for the classroom, but maybe they don't know where to start. It can be quite daunting. There's a lot of information out there, so it can be quite overwhelming. So our purpose is, to at least start to garner or start creating just some discussion regarding this and make a list of recommendations for faculty. I do have a partial draft of what we've been working on. Cindy, should I share that? Okay. So we just started going through this. I'll tell you where we stopped. Things get kind of messy. So one of our purposes here is, or I guess the main purpose is to support our students in achieving their academic goals by reducing financial barriers. And so we thought in order to do this, we need to, help faculty who are considering OER as an option for their courses. This, we just have this kind of as background information. Cindy had already gone over it, so no need to go over it again. But, it is an initiative that's supported by Metro, by the Board of Governors, a lot of administrators. It also fits into a sustainability piece or sustainability efforts at Metro also. We did spend some time defining what open education resources are. When we did the survey, it looked like, you know, some faculty and staff knew what OER consisted of, but wasn't very thorough. And we wanted to choose a definition that shared or illustrated that OER is more than just a textbook, like finding a free online textbook. OER is much more than that. It can be full courses, it can be just a module, videos, tests, assignments. It comes in all shapes and sizes. So we felt like this definition captured, you know, all of that, all the resources that could be considered OER. We also had discussion on low-cost materials. So again, reducing financial barriers is you know, key, but sometimes things are going to cost money. So, you know, we defined what low cost was, traditional materials, maybe we have some print copies of the resource if needed, or there are some OER based paid subscription services. They might be, you know, $10 a month, which, you know, would qualify under low cost material. And then no cost materials. Again, we can't, you know, say enough how much the library is a fantastic resource at Metro. So the library is just full of no cost materials, ebooks, articles, so on and so forth. But then also ones that might not be openly licensed. So maybe instructors came up with their own PowerPoint that they'd like to use. So then we get to kind of the start of our recommendations that we have here. And it was right when we started to really get into like, okay, how are we going to help instructors? Is we found the need of, you know, or the role, I should say, that our libraries are going to have. So Scott, I think, will be sharing here shortly some of the work that he's been doing, and other librarians at Metro. Is he's been creating a resource page that provides an overview of OER, a place where faculty can learn more about copyright and open licensing. So we thought, you know, before faculty can even start, we should have a place where they can go to find these resources. I think I mentioned it later on. The curriculum instruction page does have some resources, but Cindy, or I think we talked about, I think you were putting a hold on that while we're migrating out of My Way.
Yeah, we're migrating everything. It's a side note, but you know, My Way's going away. Simpler is going to replace it. We have some sites on My Way. They're you know, they're SharePoint sites. They may need to go to other sites, and IT is working on a purchase rec for that. So we haven't done too much to the C&I pages for a while. You know, except as needed for, you know, important updates. So we didn't go ahead, and we didn't think we'd build it out there. We certainly are going to refer to the library as the point on this, because again, they're best available to help everyone, and I think most knowledgeable. So yeah.
Okay. Let me go back and share the screen on that one. Okay. So yeah, Scott's curating a list of resources that faculty and staff can use kind of in these beginning stages of you know, on the hunt for OER materials. We also were looking at different questions as far as, is this course you're teaching a good candidate for OER? And just some things to consider, you know, are you looking to replace the textbook, or you just want developmental materials from a variety of sources? Maybe look to see if other colleges have adopted OER for the course that you're teaching. There might be a lot of material already out there, which might help answer the question, are you going to adopt something? Are you going to create something, or remix it? You know, also is, you know, why are you considering OER? Are you dissatisfied with your current resources? Are materials too expensive? Or maybe not all the content that you want to share is in the current textbook. Okay. Some other recommendations is, you know, finding the time and a group to work with. And two really excellent times to work on OER for the classroom is when the department is going through the textbook review or textbook selection process, which happens every several years, along with going over course outlines. Great time to consider OER. Another one would be the summer curriculum and assessment academies. Cindy, you want to share a little bit of information on that, or would you like to wait?
Sure, I wouldn't mind doing that, actually.
Okay.
And I would say I might just, you know, we might qualify that just a little bit, especially Curriculum Academy is probably a good time to act on or work with other folks. And we have had that, you know, in our application for a number of years now, that is a good time to get together with people. And at the assignment level, you're not making a major course revision change. We're trying to separate major course revision and new course development from these academy topics generally. So that's a good time. You're not really substantially turning the course and really changing everything around, but at the assignment level, you are going in and identifying where you'd replace with publisher materials with something either you create or you've found. Especially during Curriculum Academy, this might be a good topic. And I don't mean you couldn't do it at Assessment Academy, but we are going to be trying to focus Assessment Academy, especially on assessment. It could be that you can wrap OER into, you know, a question that you're answering, and you're saying, you know, based on our assessment results or what we think is happening in our courses, we think that these publisher materials are not working for our students, therefore we want to start working on OER. I mean, you can, I'm sure faculty can you know, make that connection, but that Assessment Academy, we're going to try to not have any and all types of projects in the future, and especially, you know, assessment, we want the assessment aspect there. So I mean that very gently and nicely, just, you know, that'd be our, and you know, another thing I would throw in is, by the way, curriculum and instruction will be building in this question into when we accept a major course revision, or we talk about a new course creation. You know, we'll be posing the question with faculty, you know, could you use open educational resources? What kinds of materials are you considering to use for your course? At the same time, we also think about, you know, are these materials going to be accessible to students? So I don't mean to complicate it too much, but I would say we are wanting to build the question and have it on people's minds, and certainly we'll want to support the work that needs to be done at those academies. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Let's go back. Another recommendation is who to work with. You know, one recommendation is create a team of faculty and staff working together, because it is a big task. It's quite a daunting task, depending on how much you are deciding to replace with OER. So working in a group can be very helpful with that. And then when you're creating that team of faculty and staff, we strongly suggest consider how adjunct faculty can be involved in that process of OER adoption as well. We kind of covered find the right material. The curriculum and instruction page, that's changing. But the library page that Scott has been working on is going to be the kind of the hub of information. And so with that being said, communicating with our librarians for possible resources is very significant. It's going to be a huge recommendation, is utilizing our resources here at the Metro Libraries. This highlighted thing we're still kind of working on. We're considering like a preparation checklist that faculty can go into with when they talk to librarians. So more on that. I think this is about where we stopped when we started focusing our discussions on the library website. We started looking at also accessibility of OER materials. I'm not going to get into that. Chris is here and he can speak to that as well. So I think I'm going to stop there because we haven't really fine-tuned some of these other topics. Student use, maintenance responsibility. We haven't quite gotten through those yet, so I hesitate to spend too much time on them. I want to make sure Scott and Chris have time to speak. I know I like to talk and go on and on. So I will, should we, Scott or Chris, who should we have?
Sure, I can jump in.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm working on an OER page that will be a part of the library website, and it will include information on what OER is, why use OER, how to find OER, and who faculty can contact if they have questions. I don't have any content that I can share with you at this point right now. I'm working with Doug Pagel. I have some questions on the page layout and design. I know basic HTML, but I'm not an expert. So the layout that I've come up with to me looks a little cheesy. So I'm asking Doug for help on how to make it look a little better. And so I'm hoping to have that done next week. And once that's completed, I'll start adding content to it. And that's all I have to say.
Scott, do you want to recap like real quick what you did a session at the March opening? Do you want to run back over what you talked about there? Anything that might include tips for people here, or?
Let's see. Well, the session that we did, we basically pointed out our existing resources, our databases. So we have a large collection of databases, online databases containing articles from magazines, newspapers, academic journals. We have a large collection of ebooks. We also have several streaming video collections. So faculty can also use those online collections to see if there's anything that they might want to include in their coursework. For example, one instructor told me that starting this summer, she is going to use one of our databases in place of a textbook. The database, it's a religion database, and it has all the information that she wants her students to be able to access. She's going to use that in place of a textbook. And so what the web page will do is it will include some OER resources as well as some links back to the library databases.
Scott, I just made a note a little while ago. I was thinking I've got this budget folder and I wrote D-bases for OER use. And so I'm sure you have probably requests from faculty. But that might be something down the road where we don't subscribe to something that could provide us something useful for faculty, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you
yes.
take
Yeah,
requests.
yeah. There might be more databases that we need to add to our collection.
Mhm. Chris?
Yeah, so hi, I don't have a whole lot to add other than my role is to sort of beat the drum for being aware of evaluating the accessibility of any OER content that we adopt. The good news on that is that a lot of the material available, especially what Scott was just talking about, is if it's if it's in a database or if it's in an HTML format, then it's very likely to be accessible. A lot of the downloads sometimes are not. The OER that I have come across is generally in the form of an untagged PDF, and that tends to be a problem because it's not going to be accessible. However, the good news is that we have begun some initial discussions about budgeting for remediation outsourcing, so that if there is, and probably the more common or the more OER is adopted throughout the college, we can get better pricing at scale for remediation services. So if there's really good content out there and it's in a PDF format and it's not accessible, we have a couple of different options, either licensing remediation software, using it ourselves, or outsourcing that. And there are several companies that I've been in contact with as far as providing that service, and there are no real copyright issues. I know OER falls under the fair use doctrine, but even copyrighted materials, there's an amendment to copyright law, the Chaffee Amendment, that says that material that is not accessible can be reproduced in an accessible format without being considered an unlicensed reproduction. So it's sort of my motto has always been human rights trumps copyrights, and the copyright laws in the US allow for reproducing material in an accessible format. So if we do have content, even if it is copyrighted by somebody, we can make modifications to it as long as we're not changing the content. In other words, we can remediate it so that it is accessible to all learners without having to worry about any copyright issues. So that's been my main concern with all this, but obviously it's best if we evaluate how valuable the content is, and if it's accessible in its current format, obviously that's the ideal. But if we find OER content that is really useful and valuable, we will have some options as far as being able to reproduce it in a accessible format without running afoul of any copyright laws. And that's really been my contribution in the short time I've been on the committee. So I say it mainly to indicate that don't let content that's not already in an accessible format necessarily lead you away from using that. There are There are things we can do, and we're actually looking to possibly pilot a program where we, where we're dependent on inaccessible PDFs, and exploring using different companies to remediate that content to make it usable by us.
I think there might be a couple of faculty here. I know Ryan has done some open educational resource or production of some content. And I know Stephanie is working on some changes. Do you guys want to, talk about what you're doing, or are people having questions that they want us to answer? It might be nice to hear about some of the work you've been doing too. Fran?
I was going to say, Stephanie, if you want to go forward first, I'd say take it away.
There we go. Well, I will say we're looking at moving away from textbook and adopting open ER, open educational resources for Explorer 1000. And the library, Scott, I attended the session at the beginning of the spring quarter, and that was amazing. I found great resources, and there's just, it's hard to control, like going down so many rabbit holes, but I think we're narrowing in and have found several similar community colleges that have done the same thing for the same type of course. So we're able to just narrow down and use those resources, and they are easy to look through, I'm finding that they're accessible. It's been a very positive process, and I thank the library for making my life so much easier, because it was so great to just go to that page and go, okay, here we go, start searching. And I've been finding everything I need from there. So I recommend that, and keep doing that. And that's the thing of where there's so much out there, and it's just, that's the perfect part to get you started. And because if you just go and go on a Google search and search engines, you can get lost. But so the library has done a fantastic job of getting us going on the path and making our lives a lot easier. So thank you.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yes. So that's what I have to add, if anybody. So now Ryan, you have to talk.
Well, thanks, Stephanie. And I want to thank everybody for all the work they've put in, Cindy and Leanne and Scott and Chris and everybody on the committee. I know you've set a really great, I think, framework for the college that can hopefully encourage more momentum for OER. In Psych, we're fortunate that, like Stephanie mentioned, there are a lot of community colleges and colleges out there that already use OER, and there are some great resources that are already developed. So what we're trying to do is really get our colleagues on board in adopting some of these. So we've currently been piloting it with our human growth class, and we're looking at trying it with our intro psych class as well, developing some stuff this summer. So for us, it is promising. I agree with everything that Leanne had said earlier. I think there's a real opportunity here for us at the college to really reduce costs, make our courses more accessible for everybody. I guess I did have a question, and my question is similar to what they've done at UNO. Is there any movement or consideration from the administration in funding OER? I know at UNO they offer like a grant process where faculty can apply for money to encourage, like Leanne said, faculty to take on this project, which can be considerable in terms of the work that's involved. So I was wondering if there's any idea about essentially backing this priority with funding.
I've been in contact with a couple of people at UNO about this. They have the Open Nebraska initiative, and so we've talked pretty thoroughly about what they do and how they've funded faculty. One thing I would say is that we have shaped a source course kind of a process for course development over here. And so one thing that we might do differently from what they do, they do fund individuals and they fund groups. And so we would be looking to, again, support in the academies, the work of groups that want to come together and, update a course, an existing course with OER. Otherwise, we'll bring it up in our, development processes. We are going to partner with UNO on a, open textbook grant. It's going to be, for the moment, though, it's going to be UNO and us and Kearney, and it's going to be focused on, we're going to attempt to get into this grant. So when we talked to them months ago, we said we'd be interested in grant opportunities. And so we're gonna be limited, though. We're gonna probably work with social work to start in this grant process, but we'll be looking at more opportunities and how we expand this. So they have a research librarian. His name is Craig Finlay, that I've been talking with over there, and I think Scott and our people know him as well. So anyway, so more to come on that, Ryan, but for the moment we're saying kind of what we've said for a few years. The Academy is a good place to work on it, and maybe there's a way to extend that too. We certainly do have more faculty, I would say, talking about OpenStax and some of the things that will work for some subject areas. And we know that it's not all the best, and it doesn't work for everyone, but we certainly feel like we hear more discussion about it and more attempts, but that's sort of unofficial. So yeah, so good question.
Thank you. I did have a quick follow-up. I was wondering, do you think this is an area where the foundation could be useful if we were able to create like a kind of public-private partnership? If we were able to raise money from the foundation to support faculty, do you think the college would be interested in any type of a matching grant situation?
It's possible. I'll tell you the truth, I had a meeting scheduled with the foundation today, and it's going to get postponed till next week, and we're going to talk about that. So.
Great, thank you.
And Ryan, if you don't mind, I've got a question kind of building off what Ryan talked about with the psychology or social sciences department, and then maybe Cindy, how you envision it happening. But I'm wondering, so first I appreciate sort of how thoughtful you have been about integrating the OER processes into existing processes, right? How faculty think about textbooks and textbook adoptions. So what might that look like if we have, for example, one instructor who's interested in trying it out? Do they do that in their class and then slowly gather other interested faculty, or does it need to be everybody teaching a particular course? I'm just wondering how you envision that playing out or how you've seen it work.
Do you want me to take that, or? Yeah, we would probably, again, if we're talking about paying people for source courses and kind of working with a process where we have a consistent source shell, that's where we would want to focus. I can't see restricting if there were people in a department who have individuals who want to start working on a source course, you know, with the idea that the group is on board with it, right? Or that the teachers who teach the course are on board with that idea. I'm not sure we have a, you know, we don't have a process where we say you must do it this way. A lot of times, you know how this happens, it's sort of a groundswell effort. Somebody discovers something and then they go to their next door neighbor and they say, let's take a look at this. And then we, you know, they get together and say, gee, maybe we ought to, you know, get the rest of the crew, depending on how many teachers there are. When you're talking Comp 1 and Comp 2, you've got a lot more faculty usually involved in that discussion, but showing people what you found and going a little ways, I can't see not doing that. It is one of those things where we're talking about the assignment level, right? So unless you're thinking, well, you're also really needing to change the objectives and the whole structure of the course, you know, you could probably do that at the assignment level and have a few people pilot the section that way.
Do we have a process where one section of a course, like Psych 1010-7A would have a different textbook or no textbook, and Psych 1010-7B would have something else?
Actually our PM says that individuals in a group agree, but there's an exception, to be honest. In English, after a few years of working teaching as an adjunct, I believe the English department allows the faculty to choose from among several textbooks for a course, excuse me, or to go with no textbook. And of course, this works best if you're talking about a campus class, you know. So there are lots of little, I would say, variables here. You know, we try to write a course shell that is the source course, and we want it fully developed enough to be used in an online course if that's a mode of choice that works for the students. It doesn't always work, you know, in the trades, but we still want a full modular outline of what's going on in a course, even if that shell is used for campus courses. Stephanie Emmerich has an example of this with our Explore source course. It's pretty well built out and can be used on campus, online, and hybrid. I realize that doesn't always work, you know, depends on how the course is built. And interaction is usually the difference. So let's see, tell me your question again, Naomi. I'm blathering so much.
Yeah, no, that was helpful. And Ryan sent that PM too. I was just trying to picture what would happen if, you know, you had some faculty wanting to move ahead with piloting some materials and others who wanted to wait for it to happen. You couldn't really have different official textbook selections for different sections.
Well, I think it's happened. I don't think it's what we prefer or what our PM sets forth. You know, and a lot of this, you know, I don't think anybody wants to lock us all into pens and have everything be matchy match necessarily. So, you know what I mean? We do talk about consistency and we do talk about the source course. But we realize, you know, the art of teaching is the instructor and the variable ways, the various ways that an instructor handles that. So I think the idea of piloting with a few and then having the group come along to that, you know, it's just got to be that we try out something somehow. So yeah, I think it's a good question, you know.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. Are there other questions from the group? David or Jessica, do you have anything to add or ask?
No, I think it's good.
Yeah.
This is excellent.
Yeah, this has been really informative. Anything else, Cindy, that your group might want to add?
I don't, Leanne, Chris?
I
Scott?
just, we started this a long time ago. And it, I thought it'd be like, hey, let's just do some recommendations. This is going to be easy, boom, 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 bullet list, done. Nope. Here we are over a year later, and there's so much to do, right? There's, we're kind of building, I don't want to say building from the ground up. I mean, there's a lot of resources already out there, but, to make it MCC specific, it requires a lot of communicating with different, departments and different areas of the college. And then even like, as Cindy had said, she's been communicating with people at UNO. I mean, it's a big task, but it's awesome. Like I'm very excited where, this is headed. Yeah, we're making, recommendations, but it's more than that. I mean, Scott's doing a website for the library page. Chris is offering us a wealth of information of how to make our courses more accessible. I mean, it's truly just a whole college effort. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, certainly at some point, we'll have a showcase of this, some of these things. We did this. I hate to always go back and we did this and we did that, me, but I've been around here so long. But several years ago, Comp 1 and Comp 2 went bookless. We got fed up with the publisher, and I think we were on the pandemic then, and everybody kind of, I would say, suffered through us showing Comp 1 and Comp 2 on a curriculum and assessment day, and so I think there are a lot of people who want to do this, and they have some really cool stuff they're pulling together. And so again, at some point, another point, we'll have a showcase, and it may be we get together with UNO and have a showcase of some of what they're doing with our folks too. So there'll be lots of ways we can, we can promote and get the word out and inspire people to do more with this, I think.
Yeah, I agree with Leanne. It's really exciting. And I appreciate you all being here today so much, but more importantly, I appreciate all the work that you've done leading up to this point.